My family descend from Jamaica. My mum comes from Yalas. My dad comes from Kingston.
What if we told you one of Arsenal's greatest ever strikers didn't turn professional until his 20s? No academy, no early hype, no safety net? Ian Wright came from South London estates, non-league pitches, and rejection letters, then exploded into English football like he was making up for lost time. Goals with fury, celebrations with feeling. A striker who played every match like it might be his last. From Crystal Palace to Arsenal legend, from breaking records to breaking down barriers on TV, Ian Wright became more than a footballer. He became a voice, a personality, a symbol of resilience. This is the life of Ian Wright. Ian Wright's story doesn't open under floodlights or to the sound of applause. It begins in Woolwich, South London, in 1963, a place where protection was scarce and hope even scarcer. His childhood was shaped by fear and instability. His father was absent, and what filled that space was violence and emotional hardship. Home was not a shelter, but a storm. Joy flickered briefly, like a match struck in the wind, and confidence had to be built from the rubble. In that chaos, football became more than a game. It became a lifeline. On cracked concrete and estate playgrounds, Wright found freedom. With a ball at his feet, the world grew quiet, as if everything else dissolved into the background. No mentors guided him, no academies refined him. He learned the game the way you learn survival, by instinct, by hunger, by heart. People could see the talent, raw and electric, but the system kept its gates closed. While others were pulled into youth teams, Wright was repeatedly pushed aside. Too late, too rough, too unlikely. Reality pressed in, heavy and unavoidable. He traded dreams for hard hats, working manual jobs to get by, while football drifted away like something meant for someone else. Then came the low point, the kind that feels final. In his early 20s, Wright went to prison over driving offenses and unpaid fines. The sentence was short, but the moment was crushing. Sitting in a cell, listening to matches crackle through a radio, he made a choice. This would not be the end. His story would not fade out in silence. When he stepped back into the world, he moved like a man being chased. Returning to non-league football, Wright played as if every match might be his last. At Greenwich Borough, he scored with urgency, each goal carrying years of rejection like weight on his back. His movement was relentless, his finishing desperate and impossible to ignore. Ian Wright arrived late to professional football, but when he arrived, he tore through it like thunder shattering a quiet sky. At 22, an age when careers are often settled or fading, Wright stepped into Crystal Palace as if time were snapping at his heels. Every run carried urgency, every finish felt borrowed, like a man sprinting away from his past while clawing toward a future he refused to surrender. From the moment he put on the Palace shirt, it was clear he hadn't come to fill space. Goals came fast and fierce, struck on instinct rather than instruction. He played like someone who had waited years to speak and finally found his voice. Within seasons, he became the club's heartbeat, driving them forward, his goals powered as much by belief as by skill, culminating in an FA Cup final that announced him to the nation. That breakthrough opened a bigger door. In 1991, Arsenal called, and Wright stepped into Highbury, carrying doubt around him and fire within. Arsenal were controlled and calculating. Wright was pure emotion. Where they prized structure, he brought unpredictability. Where they waited, he exploded. It should have clashed. Instead, it ignited. Goals poured in, scrappy finishes, thunderous strikes, moments of instinct that broke games open. He celebrated each one like it might be his last, emotion spilling out as if he were still proving himself to the world. In 1993, he drove Arsenal to an FA Cup and League Cup double, then conquered Europe with the Cup Winners' Cup. Season after season, he delivered. until the man once told he was too late became Arsenal's all-time top scorer, overtaking Cliff Bastin and writing his name into history. But football, like time, never pauses. As Arsenal evolved under Arsène Wenger, new ideas arrived, and new competition followed. When a young Thierry Henry emerged, the spotlight shifted. Wright faced the toughest opponent of his career, not defenders or critics, but time itself. Eventually, he moved on, closing an era that had transformed both player and club. Still, his hunger refused to fade. Wright carried his goals to West Ham, Nottingham Forest, Celtic, and Burnley. Even as his pace softened, his instincts stayed sharp as a blade. He scored not for glory, but for love. A love forged in struggle and sustained by gratitude. When his boots were finally hung up, Wright didn't step away from the game. He found another voice, becoming one of football's most honest and compassionate figures, speaking with the same fire he once brought to the box, championing issues beyond the pitch. Ian Wright's career was never neat or predictable. It was loud, it was flawed, it was real. He didn't arrive as a prodigy. He didn't glide to greatness. He fought for it, goal by goal, rejection by rejection, until history had no choice but to remember his name, not just as a striker, but as living proof that being late doesn't mean being finished. Ian Wright didn't beat time. He outran it. Ian Wright's legacy isn't defined by numbers alone. It's etched in silver, records, and moments that demanded attention. His first taste of glory came at Crystal Palace, where his goals fired the club into an FA Cup final and announced his arrival to English football. The trophy escaped him, but the message didn't. Wright was no longer invisible. At Arsenal, his career turned into history. In the early 1990s, Wright became the heartbeat of a dominant side, driving the club to a famous FA Cup and League Cup double in 1993, then conquering Europe with the Cup Winners' Cup a year later. He wasn't just scoring, he was delivering trophies. Then came the landmark that sealed his place in legend. Goal by goal, Wright tore down the past to become Arsenal's all-time leading scorer, overtaking Cliff Bastin. For a man once called too late, the record stood like defiance carved in stone. Individual honors followed: Golden Boots, top scorer awards, recognition as one of the league's deadliest finishers. Defenders feared him. Supporters worshipped him. And before leaving Arsenal, he added a Premier League title, completing a career that had outrun expectation. When the goals stopped, the recognition continued. An MBE induction into the English Football Hall of Fame. And ultimately, a statue at Arsenal. Wright frozen mid-celebration, emotion cast in bronze. Ian Wright didn't win everything because the game favored him. He won because he refused to be ignored. The trophies told one story, the records told another. But what came next revealed how far Ian Wright had truly traveled. Because after football, he didn't just survive the game, he learned how to profit from it. Now, we're talking money. Ian Wright did not leave football and fade into comfort. He stepped into a second career and turned it into an empire. By the time his boots were hung up, Wright had already learned a crucial lesson. Goals end, but voice lasts. And his voice, raw, emotional, unmistakable, became his most valuable asset. Today, Ian Wright's net worth is widely estimated between £15 million and £20 million, built steadily through broadcasting, brand partnerships, and smart business structures rather than reckless spending. The real turning point came in media. For years, Wright was a familiar face on Match of the Day and ITV's biggest football broadcasts. Conservative estimates long placed his pundit earnings around £150,000 to £200,000 per year, but that only told part of the story. Behind the scenes, the numbers were louder. Through his personal company, L&R Limited, Wright's media work surged dramatically. Company accounts for the year ending July 2024 revealed profits of approximately £2.19 million in a single year, with over £1 million held in reserves, a figure that briefly placed him among the highest-earning football pundits in the UK, ahead of even longtime broadcasters like Gary Lineker. But Wright's wealth isn't just earned on screens, it's amplified through brands. Over the years, he has partnered with Adidas, Marks & Spencer, Barclays, and EA Sports, brands that value authenticity as much as reach. These deals didn't turn him into a billboard. They turned him into a bridge between football culture and the public, generating significant commercial income alongside his broadcasting work. Then there's ownership. Wright is a director of Serpentine Creative, a sports-focused media production company, and Elanor Limited, the business engine behind his broadcasting and commercial ventures. These companies allow him to control his image, negotiate partnerships, and convert influence into long-term value, like owning the stadium instead of renting the pitch. Add to that property investments, book royalties from best-selling autobiographies, podcast revenue from Wrighty's House, and lucrative one-off appearances, such as his reported £400,000 ITV fee for I'm a Celebrity. Get me out of here! And the picture sharpens. Ian Wright's wealth doesn't shout. It endures, built slowly, like compound interest on belief. Forged by relevance, not nostalgia. Sustained by trust, not hype. He didn't become wealthy because football paid him early. He became wealthy because he learned how to matter long after it stopped. And like his career, his finances tell the same story. Late, earned, unignorable. Now the story shifts, from goals and grit to the luxury homes that mark Ian Wright's arrival. Ian Wright's relationship with property was never about excess. It was about arrival. For a man who once shared a single room in South London, space became more than luxury. It became freedom, privacy, peace. So when success finally followed his football journey, Wright didn't chase spectacle. He built refuge, brick by brick, like a man laying down proof that he had made it. That proof took shape at the height of his Arsenal years. In Bishop's Walk, Croydon, Wright owned a sprawling estate set on 1.3 acres, a home that expanded as his life did. What began modestly grew into an 8-bedroom mansion, cinema room, pool complex, games arcade, less a showpiece than a fortress for family and stability. When he placed it on the market in 2007 for around £6 million, it stood as quiet defiance. A late starter who had built something monumental without shortcuts, like a career assembled one goal at a time. But success, like growth, evolves. After Croydon, Wright chose calm over grandeur, moving north of the river to Kensal Rise. Surrounded by elegant Edwardian homes valued well beyond £1.5 million, his residence became understated but assured. History blended with modern comfort, privacy without isolation. It wasn't retreat, it was control. Still, Surrey remained part of the story. Reports consistently point to Wright holding high-value property there, including a mansion valued at around £3.5 million. Evidence of a man who turned earnings into foundations, not indulgence. Together, these homes tell a deeper truth. They are not trophies. They are milestones. Each marks a chapter, from survival to family to peace. Like his career, Ian Wright's homes were not rushed or inherited. They were earned late, shaped with intention, and held with gratitude. Now the journey continues. This time, behind the wheel of Ian Wright's luxury cars. Ian Wright's taste in cars has always mirrored his life. Bold, powerful, but earned. For a man who arrived late to football, and later than most to wealth, speed was never about showing off. It was about freedom, control, the feeling of finally being able to move life in his own direction. One of the earliest and most documented symbols of that success came in the form of a Range Rover Vogue. In 2001, Wright purchased a Range Rover 4.6 Vogue P38, a luxury SUV powered by a 4.6-liter V8, producing around 215 horsepower. Bought through elite dealers H.R. Owen in London, the vehicle reflected Wright's preference for strength and presence over flash. At the time, a high-spec Vogue would have cost in the region of £60,000 to £65,000. A serious statement for a player whose career earnings came before modern football salaries. The Range Rover had presence, but Wright wasn't done chasing speed. At the peak of his fame, he stepped into something far more aggressive: a Ferrari 360 Spider. When new, the Ferrari 360 Spider carried a retail price of roughly £120,000, powered by a 3.6-liter V8, delivering breathtaking performance. Wright later admitted he pushed the car to its limits, a moment that ended dramatically in 2004 when he crashed the Ferrari into a tree in Croydon. He escaped unharmed, but the incident became symbolic. Raw power meeting reality. Years later, the vehicle resurfaced on the market, selling for around £43,400. Its history permanently etched into its value. It was a lesson learned at speed. As Wright matured, his taste evolved. Reports and asset disclosures consistently associate him with Bentley ownership, a brand that represents authority rather than aggression. Bentley models commonly start around £180,000 and climb well beyond £250,000, offering handcrafted interiors, immense torque, and a sense of command rather than chaos. For Wright, Bentley wasn't about thrill. It was about arrival, appreciation, and control. Across his choices, a pattern emerges. He favored British luxury over excess, power balanced by comfort, and cars that reflected where he was in life, not where he wanted to be seen. From the commanding presence of a Range Rover, to the temptation of Italian speed, to the composed luxury of Bentley, every car marked a stage. Ian Wright didn't collect cars the way trophies are gathered. He used them like chapters, moments of progress, lessons learned, and proof of a journey completed on his own terms. For someone who grew up with little, Ian Wright treats luxury like a quiet ritual, enjoyed on his terms, not shouted from rooftops. Time first. He prefers legacy over noise. Rolex staples like the Submariner/Datejust, approximately £8,000 to £15,000, and Audemars Piguet Royal Oak pieces, approximately £25,000 to £40,000. Not trends. Heirlooms, time on the wrist, like pages turning in a well-worn book. Style, never flash. Tailored suits from top houses, approximately £3,000 to £6,000, with sharp cuts and restrained tones. Confidence that hums like a finely tuned engine. Off-duty creed. Trainers rooted in Adidas culture. Limited drops, approximately £250 to £500, and the occasional resale grail, approximately £1,500 to £3,000. Worn, not worshipped. Luxury that walks, not sits behind glass. Travel, measured. No jet parades, but long-haul business / first for approximately £4,000 to £10,000. Privacy and calm, like drawing curtains on a loud street. No glitter for glitter's sake, just quality, chosen carefully. After arriving late and earning it the hard way, Wright's wealth speaks softly. Comfort, craftsmanship, and calm. Not early, but right. Talking about his personal life, Ian Wright's life away from football has never been a straight road. It twists, stalls, and restarts. Long before goals and cameras, he was shaped by complicated love, learning it late and imperfectly. A childhood without emotional safety left scars that fame only magnified, turning private struggles into public weight. Responsibility arrived early. At 19, Wright adopted Sean, his partner's son, with no money and no safety net. Duty over readiness. Sean, and later Bradley Wright Phillips, would rise to elite football, binding Wright's family life to constant scrutiny. But fatherhood didn't bring balance. In 1993, Wright married Deborah, only for the marriage to collapse as his fame peaked. It ended in 2004 after Wright admitted infidelity, his deepest regret, which he has since owned openly, tying it to unresolved wounds from his past. Nothing stayed private. He has spoken candidly about fathering 8 children with 4 women, supporting them all while acknowledging broken bonds with some. No excuses, just accountability. Eventually, life softened. In 2011, he married Nancy Hallam, a woman who didn't know who he was. With her came stability, love built on maturity rather than chaos. Then came another storm. In 2025, Wright was accused by Ini Aluko of blocking opportunities in women's football punditry. Though she apologized, Wright, hurt but composed, refused to accept it, choosing closure over conflict. It showed the truth. Behind the smiles is someone deeply affected by how his character is judged. Ian Wright's personal life isn't about perfection. It's about growth under pressure, about failing publicly, and choosing ownership over denial. He didn't get everything right, but he faced what he got wrong. In the end, Ian Wright's luxury was never meant for the world to see. It was proof to himself. From homes built like sanctuaries, to cars chosen for control, to quiet luxuries worn like second skin, everything tells the same story. This wasn't wealth that arrived early or loudly. It came late, earned inch by inch, shaped with care, spent with purpose. For a man who grew up with almost nothing, luxury transformed. Not excess, but ease. Not noise, but stillness. Not validation, but freedom. Wright didn't lunge at success. He waited for it, and when it arrived, he treated it gently, like something fragile, knowing how fast it can vanish. Gratitude over glamour, substance over show. Because the real luxury isn't what Ian Wright owns, it's the road that led him there. If this deep dive into the luxury life of Ian Wright hit home, remember to like, subscribe, and tell us, who should we cover next?